99% of people should not trade Bitcoin or crypto. Let me explain. And I'm not saying that to be controversial. I'm not saying it for clicks. I'm saying it as someone who spent nearly 10 years learning how trading actually works. If you don't know me, my name's Harvinder Bogle. I've been in Bitcoin since 2015. I started taking trading seriously after the 2017-2018 cycle when everything just collapsed, and I wanted to understand why. And today I work with people who want to understand Bitcoin properly without gambling their time, their capital, or their peace of mind. So what I'm about to say doesn't come from theory. It comes from real experience. Now let me be clear about something before we go any further. This video is not anti-trading. If you're a full-time professional trader with systems, capital, emotional discipline, and a lifestyle to support it, then this isn't for you. This is for intelligent people who have jobs, businesses, families, responsibilities, people who are trying to trade on the side, in the evenings, between meetings, after the kids are asleep, because that's where most people get this wrong. They don't fail at trading because they're stupid. They fail because trading demands a life structure that most people simply don't have. And that's what I want to unpack. I didn't get into trading because I wanted excitement. And I definitely didn't get into it because I thought it was an easy way to make money. The main reason I got into trading was because I really wanted to understand how the financial system, the financial world, actually works. After the 2017 bull run and the crash that followed, I realized something. Most people really had no idea why prices moved the way they did, including me. So I went down a rabbit hole. I started to really understand money itself, what it is, where it comes from, why it keeps losing value, why do things keep getting more expensive. And once you understand that modern money isn't real money in the traditional sense, that it's debt-based and they just keep printing loads, and that since the gold backing, it's almost created out of thin air without limit, you start to see the world very differently. You realize prices aren't just moving randomly. They're reacting to liquidity, to incentives, to policy decisions. And at that point, trading starts to look more logical. You think, well, if I understand how money works, if I understand how markets react to that, then surely I can learn to trade this properly. And that was my mindset. It wasn't gambling, it was education, or at the very least, that's what I told myself at the time. And to be fair, learning that side of things is very valuable. Understanding money, incentives, and market structure changes how you see everything. But trading itself, this is the part most people don't like hearing, because trading isn't broken. It's not unfair by accident. It's working exactly like it's designed to work. People love to criticize casinos. They say gambling is bad. And that's predatory. And then those same people will glorify trading as if it's somehow something different. But in reality, it's pretty much the same thing, just dressed up in a different way with charts and indicators and financial language. Here's the key thing to understand. The trading industry doesn't make money when you win. It makes money when you trade. Every click, every position, every bit of leverage you use. That's why exchanges, brokers, and platforms can afford to offer such ridiculous incentives. Huge bonuses, huge commissions. I get approached by companies all the time. They offer me flights to fly me out to Vegas or big events and sponsorships. And I said to myself, I know exactly where that money comes from. I know business and I know margins. And if you can afford to fly people out to places like Vegas and all these different shows, you're obviously operating on a very high margin business level, because that money doesn't come from nowhere. And in trading, it comes from the losses of retail traders. These companies that approach me, the offers are genuinely tempting, but I always say no, because I know the maths. If 100 of my subscribers signed up through one of those links, statistically, probably 99% of them would lose money, and I would very likely be paid from their money. So they're literally giving me their money in a roundabout way. And that's something I'm just not comfortable with. And this is important to understand. If you're in an industry that can afford to pay people that well for referrals, it's because the odds are overwhelmingly in their favor. Exactly like a casino. Most people aren't trading against the market. They're trading against a system that already expects them to lose. And once you see that, it becomes much harder to pretend that it's just a neutral skill game. Now, this is a part that almost never gets discussed properly. Trading isn't just a strategy, it's a lifestyle choice. And this is where a lot of intelligent people fail. If you ask a doctor the best way to make money, they're probably going to say, look, become a doctor. And it's the same thing if you ask a dentist. If you ask a dentist, what's the best way to make money? They're just going to say, become a dentist. If you ask a successful trader how to make money, they're going to say, well, it's obvious, become a trader. Everyone is biased by what worked for them, and that's normal. And you can apply that to anything. Diet, exercise, relationships, doesn't matter. But what almost no one talks about is whether that lifestyle actually fits your life. Trading demands focus, real focus, long periods of sitting down in front of a screen, monitoring price, managing risk, regulating emotion. Now compare that to real life. You have a full-time job. You might be running a business, raising kids, trying to be present with your family. Those two things just don't sit comfortably together. And I know this because I tried to make it work. I told myself I'd be disciplined, and I was. I'd place my trades in the morning. Then I'd focus on my businesses. And I'd go back and check in the evening. On paper, it sounds sensible. You have your stop losses, everything's all in place, and you can just trade away, make money. But the reality is it didn't work, because once you place a trade, part of your mind is always on that trade, even if you don't want it to be. You're checking your phone, you're checking the charts, you're thinking about the price, you're mentally adjusting scenarios. It's not a conscious distraction, it's a psychological one. And that constant background noise adds up. You're never really switched off. You're never really fully present. And over time, that takes its toll. And some people can handle that. Most people can't. And again, it's a lifestyle choice. It's not a weakness. That's just a reality. Now, this is where a lot of people misunderstand what's actually going on. Most people don't lose at trading because they're unintelligent. In fact, a lot of traders are very smart. They lose because trading sits right at the intersection of probability and psychology. And humans are terrible at both. You're dealing with uncertainty, incomplete information, and outcomes that don't reward effort in a linear way. You can do everything right and still lose, and you can do everything wrong and still win. That messes with your head. So what happens? People overtrade, they chase losses, they get emotional, they break their own rules. Not because they're reckless, but because they're human. And then there's survivorship bias. You only ever see people who made it, the ones posting screenshots, the ones selling courses. You don't see the thousands who quietly lose money and walk away. A good question to ask a trading company if you're going to work with one. Just ask them, look, what is the success rate? If you have 100 people who go through your program, how many of them actually make money and become good traders? I can pretty much guarantee it's probably 1 or 2%. When you look at the data, it consistently shows the same thing. The majority of traders lose money over time. And of the small group that actually do make money, most barely outperform people who just hold and do nothing. And I'm talking about Bitcoin here. So you have to ask yourself a serious question. If something is this hard, this psychologically demanding, and the odds are stacked against you, why are so many normal people convinced that they'll be the exception? And that question leads us straight into the real uncomfortable truth. Now, to be fair, there are people who succeed at trading. I know some of them. That's important to say. There is a small group of people who are consistently profitable over long periods of time. But when you look closely at how they operate, you start to see why this doesn't apply to most people. Successful traders tend to have a few things in common. One, they trade full time. It's not a side job. They don't trade between meetings. They have defined systems and rules and the discipline to follow them even when it hurts. One of my mentors told me, and it's always stuck, you plan the trade and then you trade the plan. Traders, they're emotionally neutral to losses. Long losing streaks don't shake them. They don't need every trade to work. They know statistically that's That's not how trading works. And critically, they're trading with capital they can genuinely afford to lose. They're not using their rent money. So it's not stress money. That's not money tied to family security. This isn't just a skill issue. It's a life setup issue. And here's the uncomfortable part. If you're watching this video while juggling work, family, responsibilities, and you're asking yourself, could I be in the 1%? The honest answer is probably not. Not because you're incapable, but because your life is already full. And that's okay. Most people don't fail at trading. They simply choose a game that doesn't fit their lifestyle, their reality. This is where I think people like Tony Robbins absolutely get it right. Because when you strip everything back, wealth isn't built through clever trades. It's built through systems. Tony calls it your money machine. And the idea is very simple. You have some kind of work, career, ideally a business that generates cash flow, income. And that cash flow does three things. First, it funds your life, your rent, your food, your lifestyle, your responsibilities. Second, you save a portion of it. You don't spend everything, and that's non-negotiable. And third, you invest a difference, not to get rich quick, but to compound growth over time. That's the machine. Income comes in, living expenses go out, and the rest is invested. The growth is compounded, and what most people miss is this. The business or income engine is what powers the whole thing, not trading. Trading tries to shortcut that process. It tries to replace the machine. And for most people, that's just backwards. When you build a proper money machine, you don't need to stare at the charts all day. Your job is to make intelligent decisions over long periods of time. You spend less than you earn. You save and invest the difference. You reinvest the returns and let time do the heavy lifting. That's how you reach your critical mass. And that's how you reach financial freedom, not by guessing price moves, but by constantly feeding the machine. And once that machine is built, it starts paying you back, not in stress, not in anxiety, but in optionality, freedom, and peace of mind. That's the game most people should be playing. So when you zoom out, this is why most people fail at trading. It's not because they don't work hard enough. It's not because they haven't found the right system or strategy or indicator. And it's not because they're stupid. It fails because trading asks you to do the hardest thing first. It asks you to generate income from uncertainty, with pressure, using capital you probably can't afford to lose, while juggling the rest of your life still. That's a brutal starting point. The money machine flips that on its head. Instead of trying to extract money from the market every day, you focus on building a reliable cash flow system first. You work, business, skills, then you use that cash flow to fund your life. You save a portion of it, you invest the rest. And I know I'm repeating myself, but you let compounding do the work, which humans are very bad at doing themselves. Patience, consistency, long-term thinking. Trading demands constant decisions. The money machine demands discipline, but far fewer decisions. Trading keeps you glued to the screen all day. The money machine works quietly in the background. Trading feeds on emotion. The money machine feeds on time. And this is the key difference. Trading tries to be the engine, the money machine. The money machine uses investing as a component of a bigger system. For most people, that's the sensible path. It fits around your real life. It respects your time, and it doesn't require you to be exceptional just to avoid losing. So when I say 99% of people shouldn't trade Bitcoin or crypto, I'm not saying don't do nothing. I'm saying play the right game. Build your money machine, let investing compound quietly, and stop trying to force trading into a life it just doesn't fit. That's how you build wealth without burning yourself out. I want to be very clear as we wrap this up. I'm not saying trading is evil. I'm not saying nobody should do it. I'm just saying the reality is it's incompatible with most people's lives. People don't lack intelligence. They lack the time, the emotional bandwidth, and life structure that trading actually demands. And there's no shame in that. Trying to force trading into a full life doesn't make you disciplined. It makes you stressed. Real wealth, for most people, comes from doing fewer things consistently over a longer period of time, building income, saving a portion, investing intelligently, letting compounding work quietly in the background. That path isn't exciting, but it works. And more importantly, it lets you live your life while you're building it. If this way of thinking resonates with you, I've put together a free video where I break down how I look at Bitcoin properly, without trading, without leverage, and without the noise. It's a system that I use to invest in Bitcoin and the ones I take my one-on-one clients through. There's no opt-in, it's free, and I cover a lot of detail in there. If you like this kind of long-form videos, this honest conversation, and you find it useful, make sure you're subscribed. Give the video a like, it helps more people find it who need to hear it. And I'd generally like to hear your experience. Have you tried trading while working full-time? Are you a full-time trader? What was it like for you? Let me know in the comments. I do read all of them. Thanks for watching.